as you know, I wanted to make a statement on the gun range, so I will do that. First of all, I want to say that our planning department is second to none. We have probably the best planning department in the state, maybe even in the country, and I am so proud of the work they do. But I really wanted to take time to sort of explain my role and how it sort of plays out. The planning department responsibility is to recommend projects based on our code of ordinance, as well as the standards that are laid out to deal with any variances of that code. They have to make an impartial and professional decision as to what to recommend and what not to recommend. And I entirely respect their ability to do that. They're all professionals. They're all certified planners. They take their work very seriously, and they make decisions based on, as I said, our code and on certain standards. That doesn't mean I always agree with their recommendations, and as I look at it from a policy perspective in the position of mayor, and from what I and ultimately the commission would like to see our city to look like. So I felt it important today to say that I don't like this gun range in our city. I certainly don't like having it being proposed to be so close to residential areas, so close to a park. And as many of you know, I've been very active in my advocacy for common sense gun laws, and I felt like I needed to really come out and say to the public that this is not something I support. Now, the fact that I don't support it doesn't mean that the process is going to be changed. There's a process to follow. Every petitioner, every applicant has a right to that process, and we're going to afford these people their full rights and opportunities to be heard. And you know, the process has checks and balances built in. That's what the Zoning Board of Appeals is. That's what the Downtown Action Committee is. That's what the Planning Board is. That's what the City Commission is. Or if in fact going to the courts is something that has to be done, that's what the courts are. There are checks and balances built into the system. So my saying this to you isn't going to change the process from our perspective, the city perspective. The petitioner has the right to be heard. I just want to be able to express that I don't think this is a good place for a gun range. I'm concerned about the way our code reads, in that parks are not considered as we're looking at the distance between a facility like this and houses and neighborhoods, but we should also be looking at the distance to parks. Right now, that's not in our code. So that's something that we are going to be looking at to see if there are some changes that need to be made in our code. So that's really where I stand. I feel like this petitioner, this applicant, has done everything he can do to make this a more palatable development, and we of course want to see development in our city, but the fact that it's a gun range is concerning to me.
When you say you support common sense gun laws, I assume you're talking about laws dealing with people. Well, I don't want to assume.
Background checks for everyone, you know, especially the gun show loopholes and sales between people. I'm a member of Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and we've taken a position as a conference to back common sense gun laws, but to also uphold the Second Amendment.
How does that relate to a gun range?
Well, it's probably a stretch in terms of a direct relationship. And I know that gun ranges there's lots of research that shows that gun range don't increase the number of guns, and that it's usually responsible people who use gun range. I just think for people to be going to and from that location, so near a park and so near a neighborhood filled with children and young people, is concerning.
Because it's people going to and from it with guns?
With weapons.
And are there any other gun ranges in the city limits right now?
I think there's one. I'm not really sure though. I know there's one out on Okeechobee Boulevard, but I'm not sure if that's in the city or not.
Okay.
When you look at the city code, is 1,000 feet enough of a buffer between a range and a neighborhood? Or is that something you want to possibly expand it?
Well, I think we have to look at everything. My particular focus at this point is the parks, the fact that we don't take parks into consideration. And Howard Park is such a highly used park. There's young people there all the time playing basketball and soccer, and you just drive by and you see people there. So.
Is the 1,000-foot rule, is that due to noise, or what's the philosophy behind it, do you know?
I don't. I think it's both noise and general protection. And it, where it's proposed is in fact a commercial area, but it's very close to a residential area and a park.
And you're fine with the gun shop itself being there?
I would prefer not to have a gun shop there, but they're able to be there by right.
And why would you prefer not to have a gun shop there?
Because I don't like guns, and I would just as soon not have them readily available in our city. We just had a shooting last night. There are too many guns on the street, too easy to get. There's too many young people being shot and hurt and killed, and it's not what we want for our city.
And you're concerned, though, about the gun range. I mean, you were saying studies have shown that the people that use a gun range are more likely to be law-abiding folks.
And I think that there are certainly positives. This applicant has done everything to reduce the polluting effect of lead. He's done a lot of noise mitigation. To shoot there is going to be costly. So I don't think that there will be, run-of-the-mill people. You're going to have to be able to afford $75 an hour or something like that. So I think he's done everything he can to be a good neighbor, and I applaud him for that. I just wish it were 1,000 feet west of there.
Are there other locations in the city that might be prime for something like this?
I'm sure that there are better locations. I can't tell you off the top of my head what would be available. And perhaps there's something more fun that we can have there, paintball place or a laser tag or something like that, that everybody could enjoy.
Other topics, other questions?
Just your thoughts as someone with a background in education. Tony Bennett resigning today after several days of, the governor told us yesterday he's doing a great job. Maybe for people watching and for parents in particular, how important is the job of education commissioner, and what is the real impact in day-to-day lives for students?
Well, I'm going to respond to that as an educator and not as mayor. I think Tony Bennett's job, or the Commissioner of Education's job, is critically important to what happens in a day-to-day in a school district. They develop and guide policy. They are the face of our school districts to the rest of the country. And I think, I hope we find somebody who's going to do that well.
You have any thoughts on the Trayvon Martin verdict and this sit-in at the Capitol and the way the governor's responded to it?
I'm not going to respond to that.
We have to ask about the bridge.
It's closing, right? Aren't we, isn't it going to close down for a month or something?
The North Bridge?
Yeah, do you know, Stan? I haven't heard anything in a while. And I really haven't heard any complaints about people not being able to get up to the other side of the bridge. So I haven't heard anything.
And any more discussions about mobile advertising and where the conversation may go after this week?
And we're going to look at our codes and see if there's some way that we can approach that in a fair and reasonable way.
Between that and the shooting range, how does that characterize the kind of city you want to see?
We had a resident summit, the downtown residents at the DramaWorks Theater the other night, and I talked to them about a book I just read. It's called For the Love of Cities, and it's by a man who actually lives in St. Petersburg, but is quite well known nationally. And he talks about people who love where they live, who really love their city. And I have to tell you, I've lived in a lot of places before I came here, but I never felt a connection until I came to West Palm Beach with a city. And that's what we want people to feel. We want people to love their city. We want people to feel a connection with it. We want them to engage in interaction with the city. And I think all of those quality of life things that we talk about, like the train going by, are issues we have to address because we want people to love their city. And it's about quality of life.
Any thoughts on where we are with the shortfall and what else might be considered at this point?
It's going to be, we have been able to whittle it down a little bit more.
Almost half, right?
Yeah, and there will be cuts, and we're going to have to make some decision on how we want what would be the best tactic to increase our revenues.
Do you have any
I don't think we
preferences?
can cut our way out of this because we are already so understaffed in some departments, and back to that quality of life thing, I can't cut code officers. I need code officers out there addressing the issues in the city, and I'm certainly not going to cut police, because we are doing a great job with our police department, and I'm certainly not going to cut fire. So those are the big chunks. Parks and Rec, part of why people love cities and love the city they live in is the events and the times for social interactions. I'm not going to cut there. So there will be cuts. We've cut all travel expenses. We've cut supplies, conferences. All of that's been cut. But I think we're going to have to figure out how to raise some more revenue.
How big is the shortfall right now?
I think I can't tell you what the latest is, but I think it's around $5 million, $4 to $5 million at this point.
Okay. And what's the timeline in the budget process?
Well, we have to have the budget done by the end of September. I think our final budget hearings are mid-September, but we can send you a calendar as to what those are. And we will continue to have budget meetings with the commission in between that.
And so do you, as far as the need for revenues, will you be proposing something between now and then?
Well, we've already talked about an increased fire fee, and we've already talked about an increased millage. There are pros and cons to both of those, and the commission and I will have to figure out which is going to work best, or what combination of the two will work best.
So, the options are already on the table. In other words, there isn't some other revenue option that you're...
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So with the fire assessment fee, if it's raised up to meet other cities in the county, that in itself could close a substantial part of the shortfall.
Well, it depends on how high we want. Right now, our fire assessment fee is $25. The next one closest to us in surrounding cities is $86, and then some of them go up to over $200. If we decide to raise it to $50, that would bring in around $2 million. If we raise it to $60, it's about $3 million, give or take. Every .1 on the millage is $600,000. So, you know, we got a chunk yet to figure out how to address.
Anything else? Okay, thanks.